Have you ever been in one of those meetings, the kind where one single deep dive conversation just completely changes the game? It's that moment where a team goes from pointing fingers to having a genuine breakthrough. Well, today we're going to dissect exactly how one of those conversations happened and what we can all learn from it. It all started with a statement that pretty much brought the entire room to a screeching halt. Yeah, that's a pretty bold thing to say in a work meeting, right? But that one sentence is really at the heart of this entire story. So we're going to follow this team as they basically stumble upon a really uncomfortable truth. And we'll see how this single idea completely reshaped how they thought about everything: roles, promotions, you name it. Okay, so here's the scene. You've got a team. They're all gathered around a big whiteboard. They're doing this exercise where they map out what are called their working geniuses, which is just a way of saying, the specific kinds of work that really light them up and give them energy. The whole point is to get a super clear visual snapshot of the natural talents sitting right there in the room. So at first glance, the data they're putting up is, well, it's interesting. You can start to see who the cheerleaders are, that's galvanizing, and you see who the finishers are, that's tenacity. You can even spot Max, he's the big idea guy with a genius for invention. But here's the thing, this is only half the picture. The real story, the one that matters, only pops out when you look at the other side of the coin. Because when the team adds their frustrations, the work that just completely drains them, a problem that had been kind of simmering under the surface suddenly becomes impossible to ignore. It's right there in red for everyone to see. Max, their brilliant idea guy, lists tenacity, the skill of actually finishing tasks with attention to detail, as his number one frustration. And just like that, with that one piece of data up on the board, the entire feeling in the room changes. This isn't some theoretical team-building exercise anymore. Oh no, it's about a very real, very present problem that, honestly, the team had probably been avoiding. And then someone just says it out loud. The facilitator points right to it, and suddenly it's not an abstract chart anymore. It's a giant spotlight pointed directly at Max. I mean, can you imagine being in his shoes? The data on the wall is basically screaming that you're struggling with a core part of your job. You could have heard a pin drop. The tension was just, wow. Everyone could see Max was uncomfortable. And this right here, this is that critical moment. It's a fork in the road, where a conversation can either spiral down into blame and defensiveness, or it can build toward a real breakthrough. So instead of accusing him, the facilitator asks this really direct but surprisingly elegant question. He connects what's on the board to Max's real-world performance. It's honest, it's out in the open, and it creates a space for a real conversation instead of just letting that awful tension hang in the air. And this is how you diffuse a situation like that. The conversation pivots. It goes from being about Max's personal failure to being about a universal experience. The facilitator actually shares his own stories of struggling with the same thing, showing Max, hey, you're not alone in this. And that little bit of shared vulnerability, that's what broke the tension and let the whole room finally exhale. And right here, this is the crucial pivot of the entire conversation. This isn't about making an excuse for poor performance. Not at all. But it is a powerful explanation for it. The team suddenly realizes, oh my gosh, we put Max on a project that required a ton of tenacity without anyone there to support him. The problem wasn't just Max, it was the whole system they had built around him. This was the real aha moment. It was the collective realization that the problem wasn't the person, it was the system. They had set him up to fail. So Max, feeling all of this, asks the question that's probably been terrifying him. It's a moment of just pure vulnerability. He's basically asking, is there even a place for me here anymore? And that forces the team to look at the real human cost of their flawed setup. And here it is, the leadership breakthrough. The leader steps up and takes full accountability. I mean, that statement is just incredibly powerful. It completely lifts the burden of failure off Max's shoulders and puts it squarely on this system, which is something the team can actually fix. It reframes the entire problem from you are failing to we have failed you. And what this whole experience does is expose a much bigger and frankly more destructive idea that's lurking in so many workplaces. This whole fallacy of paying your dues. And of course, Max says the thing we've all heard a million times, maybe we've even said it ourselves. It's this idea that's just baked into our work culture that you have to suffer through work you hate to prove you're worthy. But the team is about to tear that whole idea down.
So here's what we're talking about, right? It's this fundamentally broken logic that we force people to do things they're not good at and are probably drained by just to prove they deserve to do the work they're actually brilliant at. It's a system that filters for endurance in the wrong things instead of promoting excellence in the right ones.
And this is exactly how it usually plays out. Think about it. You hire a brilliant doer, someone amazing at executing tasks. And what's their reward? A promotion to a strategic role they hate and probably aren't good at. And meanwhile, the natural strategist who's stuck in that doer role never even gets a chance. It's a lose-lose situation for everybody. And then, get this, another team member, McKenna, chimes in, and she says she loves the implementation work and absolutely does not want to be promoted into a strategy role. This just proves the paying dues idea hurts everyone, not just the people who are struggling, but also the high performers who are absolutely crushing it right where they are. Okay, so the team has diagnosed the problem. Now the conversation naturally shifts to the solution. How do you actually build a team that avoids these traps and really truly leverages everyone's natural talents? This chart really lays out the shift in thinking perfectly. I mean, the old way is so rigid, right? It's all about job titles and hierarchies. The new model is way more fluid and dynamic. It says, okay, what work actually needs to get done? What geniuses do we need for that work? And then you assemble a team that has a complementary mix of those skills. It's about the team, not just the individuals. Now, let's be realistic for a second. This is a crucial point. This isn't about creating some fantasy world where you only ever do work that you love. That's just not going to happen. Everybody has to do stuff they don't enjoy sometimes. The goal here is way more practical. It's about dramatically reducing the amount of energy-draining work that each person has on their plate. And this just shows you the potential impact. I mean, imagine flipping these numbers for yourself. What would it feel like to go from spending most of your week feeling drained and incompetent to spending most of it feeling energized and totally in your element? That is a life-changing shift we're talking about. So if you only take one single thing away from this whole story, let it be this. Stop building teams around rigid job descriptions. Start building them around the actual talents, the geniuses needed for the work itself. Build balanced teams where one person's genius can literally cover for another person's frustration. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. I want you to look around at your own team in your own organization. Is there a max there? Is there someone with incredible, untapped talent who is struggling simply because they're being forced to pay their dues in a role that is slowly but surely crushing them? Because what this conversation shows us is that finding that person isn't about exposing a failure, it's about unlocking your next big break.